Okay, Chris, good morning. I have an issue. I called this episode Season 6, Episode 40, number 258. But are we technically in summer school, or does summer school start on Monday or Tuesday and we're
Next week.
still. Okay,
Yeah, this was the end of the work week. Yeah.
then this
So
is Season 6, Episode 40,
yeah,
number 258.
still on the cusp of change, but yeah, I think we kind of we dropped in that whole summer school thing in the past after we did this last kind of
Okay,
roundup episode to the school
round up.
year, and then it was like we're texting like, hey, you want to drop in for another? I'm like, sure, let's do it at like summer school. I think that's how we arrived at it, if memory serves.
Awesome.
Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't.
Obviously, my memory doesn't serve because I'm just like, oh boy, are we in the first? Are we in the last? Where are we at? Where are we at?
We're just
Um,
here.
we are just here, and we are the bomb. According to the meme that was posted. Is that Jimmy? Who
I
who
don't
is our
know.
friend, as you'd say? Who's this friend?
I don't know.
He reminds me more of a Jeremy than a Jimmy.
Jeremy.
Yeah, I don't know why.
I don't know. Jimmy is forever for me in my brain, kind of locked into adolescence,
Oh,
like
okay.
kid style. Yeah, typically, just because I think that's where the stories first started from. So whenever we do talk about Jimmy, I feel like Jimmy is probably middle school to me. I know we've talked about grown up version of Jimmy before, and I've already forgotten. We had another name too, another student. I just forget what their name was. I think we had a complimentary character that we messed with one time. Didn't stick though. Jimmy stayed. Jimmy stayed.
Okay, so along the Jimmy lines,
Along the Jimmy
guess
lines.
who I talked to in real life this last week?
Maestro Fresh West.
It was not Maestro
No.
Fresh West, but
I've met him, eh?
you've met Maestro Fresh
I
West?
have. It's that, and that wasn't a setup just for me to humble brag. It was for some reason West came to mind. Just a ridiculous one-off weird story. When I was in was it when I was in university? I don't remember if it was in university or in like OAC. Someone got tickets to the Junos. Like it was a Junos after party or a Junos pre-party or just a Juno something. It might have even been the Junos. I don't know. I don't have a stronger memory of this. Remember there was the club downtown Toronto. I think it was the Phoenix, and then I think it changed to the Diamond, but there was like a big club in Toronto, and I think the Junos were being held there. I think it's foggy. I was coming out of the bathroom and this dude with two bigger dudes came down the narrow hallway, and it was him. It was Wes walking with his crew, and there was a head nod and a head nod, and then afterwards I'm like, oh my god. And the dude that I was there with, there were two people that I was at it with. I think it must have been university. It must have been university because Steve Wiley was one of my friends in high school, kind of periphery of friends. We weren't tight, but he was always deep into music. And I think he was working with this other dude, Damon Egan, another friend. And I think they were working for a music producer. They were music producers in Toronto. So that's why I think how the tickets came my way. Um, and just a random message from one of my buddies, like, you want to come with? Like, I think the tickets went to my other friend Hutch, and Hutch is like, hey, who wants to come? And nobody responded. And this is pre-social media, so I don't even know how we talked about, like, we didn't have email. There must have been a phone call. Maybe we were all home because we're all from Oshawa. Maybe we were home one time and it was mentioned. Maybe that's how it worked. I don't know. Anyways, when you told me to guess who you met, Maestro Fresh West came to mind, and it's just a fun fact. I guess technically I passed him in a hallway on the way to the bathroom. So, and it was either at the Diamond or the Phoenix, possibly.
Okay.
Okay.
I wasn't expecting us to go there, but I'm
It's
so
okay.
happy
I've come back from
you're
it.
back.
Yeah.
So, it was Gary. I talked to Gary on the telephone.
Oh, nice.
So, to me, Gary is much more of a celebrity than Maestro Fresh Wes, and I'm just gonna leave that there. I'm gonna park that there. But so I called a colleague who works with Gary, and I'm like, "How's Gary?" And he's like, "Why don't you ask him yourself?" And then Gary was in the room. The phone was on speaker, and I spent the next 10 minutes chatting with Gary. It was epic. Epic.
I like that.
Thank you, Gary. Happy Canada Day to Gary and to everybody else who cares that it's Canada Day. And along those lines, I want to say send the drones. So
Send in the
send in the
drones.
drones. Chris and I were talking on the on ramp about.
Raging. Raging.
Were we raging?
No.
Oh, I don't think I was raging, but I do care about the animals. So fireworks. I know it's not. It's people are wondering what's in
That
here.
was a good non sequitur. Yeah. Yeah. Go though. Go. You got this.
Canada Day.
Yep.
I'm not going to speak for you, but I will kind of say you don't really have any feels for it the same way I do.
I got feels.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah,
Positive feels.
I don't have the go Canada go where, pull out your white and red uh, slacks and your toque and ignore the reality of Canada, kind of a Canada mindset. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, we unpacked this
we have.
a couple Canada days ago,
We probably do it
questioning.
every Canada Day.
We do a little bit. Why not? Hey, why not? It's low hanging fruit, but it's necessary for everyone to kind of, I think, talk about this. Keep this a conversation.
So Canada Day on my radar was I always enjoyed Canada Day growing up. Um, because I don't know why is that
No,
funny?
I just thought until you met me, and then we started talking about it. And we're like, yeah, it's until I we broke each other a little bit of our habits. That's all. That's it was
Gotcha.
just I was going Canada Day dark just for a moment there.
Um, okay, so growing up, Canada Day, I enjoyed it. I always wanted my parents to take me to Parliament Hill because I grew up in Ottawa. And then at night, I wanted to see the fireworks. Um, and they would oblige most years. We would find fireworks or we'd end up on the hill, something. We'd do something. And you're right, then I talked to you. It was Canada Day, I think s- July 1st, 2020, in the heart of lockdown. My family and I we rented a cottage. That's the cottage that allowed me to visit Newmarket, and you and I did a Foodapalooza.
Mm.
Um, I think the first Newmarket one, and I remember talking to you, and you were dropping on me like you were asking you were posing questions about Canada Day. What about these people and who are we really celebrating? What are we really celebrating? Like you provided me with a lot of great prompts. And at the time we
Was
were
that Jesse
reading,
Thistle? Were we in
no,
Thistle from the Ashes?
we
No.
were reading Dr. Kendi's book, um,
Oh,
the big one.
stamped.
Yes, stamped.
Okay.
And so what you did to me, or the way I perceived it, is that you started talking about our indigenous people, and I connected it to
The
stamped.
indigenous people.
The indigenous
Yeah,
people.
not ours. Not ours.
No, no, they're not ours. The
Yeah.
Canada's indigenous people, or
Yep.
the people of Canada, however
There
you
we
want
go.
to. Yeah, the
I love it.
Canadian. You were talking about the Canadians, because
Yep.
that's really
Yeah.
what they are. If well, did they even call this place Canada? Whatever. The the people who originally,
And this is what makes it complicated.
right, like they were
Keep going. Keep going.
the people that were parked here when we got here.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, you were talking about them, and then I connected it to everything I was getting from Stamped, which
Hmm.
talks about the black people in the United States of America and kind of their struggle and their plight the entire time they've basically been in the United States. And then I found myself on Canada Day 2020 kind of sitting there with the family as they're all running around enjoying Canada Day with their red and white. I'm like, geez, why are we celebrating? What are we celebrating? How come those people are not central to our celebrations? Do they even care? Do they see it the same way we do? Like, so I started rolling with a bunch of thoughts that I probably would normally have. And ever since then, I consider that every Canada Day. And I have a little bit of a conflict. How do I want to feel? So now I think I can feel any way I want for as long as I want. So I do recognize the people of Canada. And I do recognize that in celebrating Canada Day the traditional way, they are not being considered, or at least that's my perspective.
Mhm.
But I still have good feels because I had lots of good times with my family, which brings me to fireworks. I'm not a big fan of them anymore. I used to be. And then you were talking about you'd like to see a drone show. And then I said, send in the drones. I would love if we replaced fireworks with uh, a, a light show and we use drones to do the light show. And you raised a lot of good points. It's environmentally friendly. We have the technology to do it, so it's not like we can't. Animals and humans are not harmed by the sounds of the fireworks and the smell of the fireworks, and possibly, having that stuff rain down on you if you're out and about watching them happen. So there's a lot of good that can come from it. And so send the drones, baby.
Send in the drones. Yeah, I won't even say a complicated kind of mindset about it. I'm not a fan of fireworks, period. Um, for everything that you said, for everything you said there, the 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 pollution, the having to sort of be in, and this is where it gets, more into club psychology, just in the big crowd, kind of waiting for that event to happen. Like I don't take a lot of I can go out and be in crowds. I can, but just these kind of events tend to draw very large crowds. And I find that I'm not a big fan of this sort of like sometimes, hundreds of people all waiting for an event to happen. Unless I've paid for my seat ahead of time, where people are kind of sitting and just, because I do like going to the theater and I do like going to shows, and I would probably even like going to a concert, which I have. I went to a Trevor Noah concert this past year. Um, and I enjoyed that, but there was something about the fact that we were kind of seated and there was movement when there would need to be movement, as in people leaving, and then all the other time it was sort of like we're sitting and kind of enjoying the event. And the animal part, we know too much now about the impact on animals with the loud sounds, and because these events are just as likely to take place in your neighborhood as they are, let's say, Canada's Wonderland or another large venue. I know my cat kind of goes nuts. Um, Back in the day, my dog was stressed out by it. So in my neighborhood, I have neighbors that it's too bad. I mean, I love how you've seen how my house is situated kind of on a very almost like 90-degree bend. We're right on the outside. We're on the elbow of this 90-degree bend in our court crescent, sorry. And because of that, one of the neighbors that's slightly just around the bend, they launch fireworks every year, and all that crap lands on my roof and on my vehicle. It floats down like I'm sweeping up stuff the next day. I just think to myself, like, I do it, that sort of pride of ownership, and also because there's like little bits of metal and stuff. But like I'm also having to get out the hose and hose off my car, and I just think I just it's a hassle that I think to myself, I shouldn't have to deal with this as an after product to other people's fun. That's all. I kind of put in the same kind of mindset as when dogs shit on your lawn. Like, I think to myself, the dude that's setting off the fireworks should go around the neighborhood and sweep up everybody's yard. So, a bit of a bah humbug kind of a mindset, but I just think, given the opportunity to be creative and spend money in a different way, I would far prefer a drone show. Have some like orchestral music or some big music playing, and just a light show like that. I would dig. It seems to be also like that's the 2.0 of fireworks. A a smart a smart event where these things are networked, they speak to each other. There's like a laptop running it, and they're flying around creating an amazing, more magical, I would think. Right now that feels like it's magical to me, almost like doing animation in the sky. That's cool. And quiet apart from the music. I mean, you might hear a slight buzzing, but typically, if those things are way up in the air like that, you're not going to hear them flying around.
I'm with you on that.
Hmm.
And selfishly, I'd love to learn how to operate that light show.
I imagine.
That'd be friggin' awesome. Imagine if I had like 1,000 drones under my control. Boom, 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 boom. Send in the friggin' drones. I'd probably use another word in the middle of the night. But yeah, man, that'd be epic. Hit some buttons, you see these things just take off and start doing their thing. I'm in. I'm in. What would be even more epic is if they implanted a chip in me and I wouldn't even have to touch anything. I just think it and go. Okay. I'm gonna check off that we sent in the drones. And Gary's probably just shaking his head at home right now. Gary's with us, so he dropped a good morning and I responded. Um, Gary's like, "What are these guys doing
Morning,
today?"
Gary.
I'm also feeling a little bit of the elation of the fact that the school year's over. I'm feeling that. I'm feeling
Tell me more about that. I want to. What's that elation feel like for you?
this is a good question because so my friend Joe Marquez, he commented the other day, there is no the last there is a feeling, the last day of school feeling. And it's hard to describe to people who aren't teachers. And I've talked to teachers about this last day of school feeling, and they feel it too. It's like a euphoria. It's like for me, it's like euphoric. It's it's an in-between feeling, like you're excited that you have made it to the end of something, but you're also a little bit sad that something's coming to an end. And this feeling that Joe talks about, the last day of school feeling, I have it. And the other day when I was at work, Bomber, who's one of the teachers that I work with, he came into my little office space and stuff, and he mentioned the last day of school feeling. And I was like, "Hey, I was just talking to my buddy Joe about that." And so it's an I guess the best way to describe it is it's the excitement that my summer is starting. My school year's over. I don't have to go to work. And I've got this whole summer ahead of me. All this time, all this, what will I experience in that time? All this like kind of looking forward. But there's also a little bit of sadness as I left. We had a staff gathering yesterday, and uh, I thought people were walking away, so I left. I got in my car, and as I looked back, they were taking a group photo. And I was like, "Oh, well, this is fitting, uh, seeing as though the school system doesn't even know where I work. Um, this just goes with it's part of like a bigger picture of nobody's ever going to know that I worked with these group of people because I'm not in the photo. But nobody cares. The system doesn't even care where I am or who I'm with. So um, there's some emotions, but I would say euphoria, a euphoric high is upon me at the moment. That's what I feel, and I get it at the end of every school year because I look ahead. I'm like, oh my god, I woke up this morning and I have 2 months just in front of me to do what I want with it. I love that feeling of knowing that. Gary, do you have that feeling? Christopher, tell us what your thoughts are.
Yeah, I don't feel that. Yeah,
Do
I
you have any
don't.
feeling?
No, I don't. I don't have. I won't say euphoric.
Mm,
Um, I guess in a lot of ways, I'm more it's just a very practical kind of a feeling. I did the work. We did the work. It's an end. There's no surprise that it's going to start up again in September.
no?
No, yeah, you know what I mean. Like I don't have this. I
Yeah.
don't have a. But I understand it and I see it and I'm aware that it's really, really important to some people. And I know it's important because I hear them say things like they're crawling to the finish line. They say things like, thank God I don't have to sort of come in this building. They're like peeling out of the parking lot um, at the end of the day. Um, I get all of it. I observe and part of it it's kind of like I'm just it's there's something in me that kind of emotionally disassociates from the fact that this is an ending because it isn't. I think you stick close to the page and you if you're looking very close to the page then again in my opinion if you're looking really close to the page then you do something like that where you say this is an end and because it's an end I have to have sort of this kind of finality to it. But I think if you pull back and you look at the timeline of your career, this is just it's a pause, right? And stuff is still in motion, and I kind of like that sense of it. I will have a clearer sense of it when I no longer am doing this career. And it's not like I'm saving up the emotions. I just, me knowing me, I'll probably have a bigger sense of what you're calling euphoria that I am actually like I'm rites of passage for me are very like I understand them and I get the power of them and the celebration and you want to anoint the moment and make sure that you're sort of you can be mindful and be present for them. But the summer isn't a rite of passage. It's just a little bit longer weekend, I guess. I have more time for me that's not going to be committed to the rigors of a schedule, but another schedule kind of sets in to sort of get things done and do things. Like, you know, even today, as far as Saturdays go, I do have stuff to do. As far as Sunday, I have stuff that I know I have to do. I'm living that sort of work mindset just in a different way. Um, Yesterday, as I was leaving, so we had the way my board works, maybe other boards work this way too, is that in the morning, if you are transferring or going to a new school, you go to your new school in the morning. And then in the afternoon, you go back to your home school for the kind of close up and the retirements and the goodbyes. And I had some tears. I had tears because I was feeling some, it wasn't tears because I wasn't going to see the people. I think it was just heartfelt moments with individuals that said kind things, right? But as I'm driving away, I felt that emotion start to come down. I'm like, I'm outside the moment now. And I didn't sit at home last night, sort of thinking to myself, well, I'll do a comparison. I saw people in the parking lot kind of doing high fives, kind of doing that stuff. And I'm like out the driveway dropping you a polo. So I start to live my life as I see it. And it didn't occur to me like, oh, some people are that the party continued outside afterwards. It didn't occur to me. I'm like, I'm out of here. I got to go grocery shopping. I got to get food for Canada Day as it is because there's people coming over for dinner tonight, right? So yeah, I'm far more practical about it. Um, and I don't there's nothing novel or nostalgic for me in it. Um, and I definitely don't have any sort of soupy feels after the fact. It's like, "That was yesterday, I'm good." So, yeah, uh, and that works for me. That works for me. I was about to say, and I'm sorry, I was about to say I was gonna apologize for how I feel about the thing. I'm like, "No, that's how I roll, and I've done that for a while, and I've always been good with leaving places." Here's the one thing I will say on this. The reason that I am good at leaving places, I think, and it's such a strange turn of phrase to drop, is that I do my damnedest to be present and connected while I'm there. So I don't arrive at any particular ending point like a weekend or a summer and think to myself, my emotionality is just because that's the emotion that I'm sort of feeling connected, just an abundance of emotion that I'm feeling with that person. There isn't sort of like that element of kind of regret or worry, like I'm not going to see that person again. Part of it is I was even saying yesterday to people at the new school. I met this dude I met yesterday, Paulo, at the new school. And it's his, he, I don't know if I think he's coming off an LTO. So yeah, this is actually his first contract. And so they kind of like, the conversation sort of like, "Hey, you're new to the school. I'm new to the school. Hey, how's it going?" We just, clink coffee cups and like, "This is awesome. Nice to meet you." But I didn't really say anything much more than that um, about my history in the board. Like, obviously, I looked older than the dude. The dude looked very young. I look a little bit more haggard and grizzled. But in our conversation, people started coming up. They're like, "Clough, how's it going? Clough, how's it going? Hey, Clough, how's it going?" I'm like, "Paulo, sorry, I gotta go." And it was funny. I could see the look on his face. Is like, "But you're new here. Like, how does someone new here have that kind of connection?" And it's just I mentioned this because it's a perfect example. Is that these are people that I've left behind before, and now I'm seeing them again. And I really do believe in sudden. I kept on talking about the ripple effect. Ripple effect. It's amazing how it like the ripples don't stop. They just keep getting wider and wider and wider, and then sometimes eventually they overlap again in this sort of experience of our career. And I really do kind of believe that whomever I'm thinking I'm leaving behind is kind of on the arc of their own story. And sometimes in my life, it kind of comes back around and I meet them in new and interesting ways. And this kind of lens of that I can see other people getting swept up in. Like, I think when we're in these leaving moments, it's easy to get swept up in the emotionality and just the bigness of you leaving, you departing, and not really recognizing that other people may do the exact same thing too. Everyone's in this sort of like moment of leaving. And what I love is this circle back. And I have no doubt the individuals that are there are individuals at my former school that I have their phone numbers, right? I got their phone numbers. They will be the people that I will continue to connect with. A couple of them are even pinned on my phone, so they're right at the top of my text thing. They're the ones I'll continue with. Anybody else, I'm not going to convince myself like I'll see you when I see you. But there's others that I will carry with me, and that wasn't something that I just did yesterday. These are individuals that I built relationships with along the way and that I want to keep growing with them, even if I'm not, face to face with them each day. All this to say is that I didn't have the euphoria yesterday. Um, and in general, I try not, for me personally, I try not to go that sort of high, that sort of these ideas of like sort of getting the high or low emotion. I try to keep that middle line. Even if, when I am experiencing big emotions, I always try to get back to that middle ground, kind of go about my day.
That's interesting to hear you talk about. So my euphoria is not maybe as high as you might think it is.
Mhm.
Um, because I try to keep it even keel, but I don't deny, right? So
Yeah.
yesterday, what not yes no, not yesterday because I was done Thursday. Thursday, I came into work feeling that vibe, right? So it's like um and talking to Joe about it, it was like, what do I do with this? So I got to sit with it because that's part of my process and I enjoyed it. And now I'm feeling good. today because I think of all the things you said in terms of I'm looking ahead. I have no real schedule. I am wondering a little bit. I well, here's the thing. My wife will tell you I feel good almost every day because I really like what I do at work. Um, and the challenges I've embraced them, whereas other people maybe don't always embrace the challenge in front of them, and I think it causes anxiety and um, makes them feel not good. So, having said all that, I get how you roll. Um, I get it. It work. You said something in the middle of that, like it works for you,
Mhm.
and that's important because I think too many people do things that don't work for them. Um, when I was in a traditional school and I would see teachers bawling that it was over, I didn't get that. I didn't get that, but I guess that's not my those aren't my feels, right? I'm hoping that they're not bawling for a week. They bawl for the day. They sit with their emotions. They process. They don't deny. They don't shame, and they move forward. That's what I hope, but I don't know. Gary says he's teaching summer school, so Gary has no feeling. Gary, might you feel something at the end of summer school? And Gary, are you teaching summer school at the school that you work at every day? Those are my questions to Gary.
Mhm. I feel like Gary didn't really answer the question, but
I'm inferring
yeah, yeah, yeah.
that
Like
Gary's
I
like,
it
no, I got no feeling because I start working on Tuesdays.
yeah, yeah, he seems to be kind of connecting the dots there. That it's
Yeah.
not quite an end yet. I mean, my spouse would say something similar because they're going in next week, right? So this is what I love about this moment is like I love this perception that everyone has to be feeling the same things at the same point, right? And in some ways there's a funny thought trap there. There's a thought trap there. Um and I've been accused of kind of like, Clough, come on, come to the barbecue. And I'm thinking to myself, no, what I need to do right now is to finish reading these IEPs. Like the way I kind of like the way that I track and train myself to finish up the school year, I get that there's a gregarious expectation to that end of the school year that we're going to assemble and we're going to celebrate and we're going to sort of all be together. And I think to myself, yeah, I want a portion of that, but I don't want that to be my whole day. I really, because I'm not, um, my celebration of being together is done in like I do it in smaller parcels along the way. And I said, and the people in the room here that I've chosen to take the step beyond collegiality and connect at a deeper level, they get that. They get that about me. So, um, there are elements of the end of the school year, and this is probably, has a lot to do with any celebration that for me that I have to sort of just think this is performative and I have to choose whether or not I want to invest that energy in it. Um the people that told me yesterday, there were people that told me yesterday at my homeschool that they are going to miss me. What choked my moment in that, there was 4 or 5 different people that said they're going to miss me. What choked the moment was my brain instantly recognizing that our access to each other will be problematic because of how we kind of circle and who we connect with. But at the exact same moment, it wasn't it wasn't that moment that was activating this. It was the entire relationship that I'd had with them for 3 years and the sudden like game tape kind of playing back and just realizing that how what a good job we had done at building a relationship. Like that was that, but it was like there were micro moments there, right? um and it was respectful and it was heartfelt. So and those were the moments that I was looking for, not the general announcement. Like there was a general announcement in the afternoon at my school saying here are the people that are leaving, right? And then there's the congratulations, and the people coming in, the congratulations. And I get that. That's the playbook. That's the playbook that we go through for these celebrations. What's really funny in that moment too is I can see there's staff members that are ducking out, and I could see them, like, because we were in the calf, and I could see people were sort of walking out, and then I see in the parking lot they're hitting their car, and like the end of the day is not there yet. So I see for other people they're operating on a completely different level as well, right? Like this isn't their moment, despite the fact that, you know, the people that are being lionized at the end of the year, they know them even deeper than I do. So it's like, it's just funny. Take what you need from those moments, I guess, is the end rule on it. Give what you can. And if you're not feeling it, well, that's okay too.
Take what you need from it. I like that. Isn't
Yeah,
that
if
what?
you need to be crying in your car in the parking lot afterwards, I'll assume that's what you need. That you need that right now. You need to, if you need to, hold a hug a little bit longer, take what you need. I think that staying present with the emotion is really, that's the challenge, right?
Hmm.
You've
Hmm.
you've said it best, and you've taught me this in other discussions, sort of saying, like, normalizing the difficulty of staying with your emotions. So I like that. I like that. And you've mentioned that as far as, some of the work you're doing with your own kids and just work that you're doing for yourself. I've really taken that in.
That's good. I believe it's a good thing. I believe it's a good thing, and I believe people learn to not do it. So I
Yeah.
grew up learning not to do that,
Yep.
and it's caused me grief. When I Now that I kind of break things down and think about things and listen to people talk about it, it's not served me well. So it served somebody else well, right? Because they're the ones who programmed me, and it works for them. Doesn't work for me. It just caused me
Hmm.
grief.
Hmm.
Gary says that the end of the school year for him feels different. He thinks it's a feeling of a different rhythm in different people relationships, neither a high or sad. That's good, Gary.
I
If
like
that's
this idea of rhythms. That's a good word to use.
rhythms, because there definitely is a different rhythm.
You go
Definitely.
from jazz to blues or
Yes.
to country western, different rhythm, similar tools, maybe new tools. I don't know. I've done the summer school stint. I wonder what Gary's teaching. Gary, what are you teaching in summer school? And are you teaching something you're familiar with? When was the last time you taught a new course in summer school and thought this is an opportunity for professional development, Gary? Tell me that.
I want to
That would
say,
definitely change the rhythm. That would change rhythm away from what you're already saying as a changed rhythm. You say to yourself, "Yeah, man, I'm going to teach grade 11U physics. I haven't taught that in 20 years. I want to do that. I want to do that this summer."
I have a feeling
Mhm.
that Gary's doing some type of civics thing. That's
Yeah.
my feeling because it's
Civics is a hot
general.
topic, but
Yes.
that's the short run intensive, right? You're in civics for 2 weeks, and then you flip and you get another group for 2 weeks, and then that crew then goes on to career. Like
Yes.
that's that rhythm. I've done that rhythm. It's a slog. It's a slog to get, a half semester course done in 2 weeks, but magic saves us. Magic saves us. There's
Come
the
on.
there's the wand. Um, where do we go next? What
Do
else
you
we
want to
got?
do you want to tell us about you at your new school?
Yeah,
That you're
sure.
starting at a new school and maybe
Yeah.
what comes with that for you?
Yeah, so you've gotten a lot of the feed on this. I've dropped a lot of bits and pieces your way. I think um like, leaving a school, if you're good at leaving, you have to be good at arriving. Or I think they're like right, they're different. It's your left right toolkit, so to speak. Because to do a good pack up, closure, connection, curation, detail, all the bureaucracy of shutting. And for me in spec ed, the bureaucracy of shutting down the year. The cool thing about shutting down the year, even though I was transferring to a different school, really is no different than I would always do. There's paperwork that needs to be filed. There's plans that need to be kind of the egg timers on them so that they activate in September. There were a couple extra layers to this that I was helping the new teacher that's taking over the program, kind of priming them and giving them some backgrounders and helping them with the room design that they were imagining themselves into. So there was a few extra elements, but because I started my shutdown at the beginning of June, I created time and space for other people to ask of me at the tail end, it was a kind of a cool way to feel useful at the tail end when when I had my work done. People kind of dropping in for that one more question, Clef. I got one more question. And for a handful of individuals, I became the go-to as far as, okay, Clef, what does this mean in our gaps, our Google Workspaces stuff? I had a handful of individuals that ever since I got there, because I told you I was doing, when I first arrived there and I arrived into COVID and online teaching, I was running weekly lesson labs for teachers to test drive different digital tools. And we would just all kind of collect within the Google Meet and talk about what, like basically trialing and using different things. So a lot of them stayed with me and kept on checking in. Like, I want to do this thing. How do I do it? Which was really cool. I didn't kind of realize the body of work that I had kind of created and the connectivity that I had created with this small group of people. But yesterday, two of them, as part of their like, hey, best wishes, Clef, they're like, thanks for helping me change my practice. Like that tech shift was really useful. And these are people that I had sort of worked with frequently, but I never actually said those words. So those were kind words that they said. So the leaving part went according to my toolkit. I would say plan, but it's always a different plan. But the toolkit worked. The muscle memory worked. I shut down. I arrive in the new school, and we've talked about this. Just the idea of being the teacher with the students. And it was the who the F are you? We had an episode about this. You know, you arrive either as you're an on-call teacher or you're approaching the student in the hallway. Maybe for you, you know, walking into some of these schools where it's like a cold call, right? You know the kid and you know where that classroom, that kid is, because that's all data driven. You can get their schedule, you can get their attendance. Maybe the principal knows you're coming in. You check in at the office, you walk the hall, and people are just like, sup. Like you're getting like the coolness of arriving. So that was my I did 3 of those kind of cold call wanders at the new school. Each in different amounts of time. And I'm fortunate, you know, when I talked about that leaving a place and everyone's in their own kind of like, they're kind of doing their own trajectory within this career. And you never really know if someone also leaves a school until you both arrive at this new school. You're like, oh my God, like, how long did you stay at that school after I left that school? And they're like, yeah, I was there for another 2 years. And then this opportunity, you start to hear echoes of my own story of leaving and other people's stories. So that's that ripple effect I mentioned before. I'm standing with Paulo. I'm like, dude, I just have to go talk to this person. I never make it back to Paulo. Like, I like talking to a bunch of people I don't know. So arriving at the new school, depending on who I talk to, they would say, oh my gosh, this is like insert name of school 2.0, because there's individuals from our last encounter. There's individuals from that school all here. But dude, I got 3 or 4 different insert school name 2.0 because I've been at different schools. So different people are sharing this exact same kind of observation of, wow, this is kind of like the cool crew from this school that we worked at before. And everybody is like creating their own little microcosm of connectivity based on where we last saw each other. So like, it was like, oh, this is just like a mini Williams. Oh, this is like Tommy Douglas East. Oh, this is like Keswick South. And I'm like, it's also a brand new high school here on Height. Like, you know what I mean? It's also a new place, but everyone was kind of bringing their cliques and their orbits to this one spot. So that was cool, and that actually made um that type of that just it brings down the blood pressure, right? I can feel the physiological kind of response to that, like just the of seeing a familiar face, and that's good. That's good. That's good for your body. It's good for your mind, right? The other part to this, so it's like, yes, there's a few of us that are all the new guys in a new place, clinging to what isn't new. So we're bringing these kind of like schema from our previous schools to kind of say, uh, it's like the reminder that we know how to do this job. It's the reminder that we have experience and that it was the time between is that we're righteous and it was time for change. We're all in these kind of like positive kind of feels. And then you kind of get to the technical side of being the new guy. And in this particular case, I got a whole lot of advice, a whole lot of advice about a whole lot of different topics, including sort of about staff members, about classroom composition, about the students, and everyone. I would say everyone was righteous in their own way. And so these are individuals that are at the school. So it's not any of these little new worlds that collide, any of my people that I knew in the past. These are very much individuals that are rooted in the school and giving, it reminds me, similar, not the same, when Karen was pregnant and people would just kind of walk up and cold call on the advice. And Karen developed kind of like a very reasonable response. Thank you very much for your advice. I appreciate the fact that you would take the time to mention it to me and I'll take it into consideration. Like she sort of like got into this mantra just because sometimes the advice is like, oh my God, what were they thinking? Why would you ever say that to somebody? So I had that element kind of playing out in my head, being gracious, being kind of open minded, and then also trying, once in a while with individuals that I feel like, okay, I feel like I can kickstart this relationship. I would push back right away. I wouldn't even let it pass. I wouldn't even let it pass. So people telling me about the room design, people telling me about how certain kids sort of relate to each other, how they relate to the room. And I would kind of push them like, tell me more. Not necessarily saying, tell me more. I'd ask a more pointed question, but that's the essence of it. Tell me more. They think they're just going to say, here you go, and give me a piece of information. No, 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 wait. Jimmy, tell me more. Tell me more. Tell me more about this. Tell me more about your experience with this. Tell me about the patterns here. Tell me what you observed in the beginning, middle, and end. And Jimmy's like, oh crap, who is this guy? Who is this guy? I thought I could just sort of dump and run. Like, there's no dump and run with Clough. And I know that about me. There's no small detail. Like I will envelop you in a story before I will let you leave me in the dark, right? And so some people were already trying to figure out that. Um, and the last part of it I'll say is that there is like if you're wrapping up your classroom, which many of the people at the school were, I had the sense that, and I get this because I kind of did this back at the school that I left. Like there is this mindset, like I'm done. Like the work is done. The work is done. So even doing any conversation that doesn't primarily talk about going to the cottage and sitting on your deck, sometimes that's forbidden, right? Don't talk about September. Don't do that. What are you doing talking about September? It's like, oh, now you've gone and done it. Like you're totally harsh in my vibe here, Clough. I'm like, well, my summer's dependent on me kind of also seeing what September's going to look like. I need to be able to see what some of those patterns are going to bring to me. So, I don't know. I can't say for sure. I can't say for sure that my first steps into the school were entirely understood. It's going to take a while for me to grow into and for the school to grow around me. I will say I had a couple really great conversations that gave me a clear view of what certain people expect from me. And some of these people have legitimate power over me. But I also got a really good sense of, I guess, if I were to be positive about how collaborative and sharing the school is, which I kind of always expect. But yeah, being the new guy. The one thing I will say, and I don't have a really great flex on this, more to come, is one of the things that I appreciate most about being the new guy is that I'm not in any cliques yet. You get into cliques whether you want to be or not. I'm not in any cliques yet, so I can observe culture almost in like I get and observe culture in an almost anthropological and sociological way, and I really like being able to do that, watching how people talk to each other, how they pass each other in the hall, their tone, body language, facial expression. I love observing that. I love it. Um, because it's also one of my strengths in my classroom to sort of really pay attention to those things in the classroom. So that is my essay on being the new guy. Thank you for your time. And thank you, Gary, for not, if you're still listening.
I think Gary's still here, and I'm gonna post up what he said in a second. But interesting observations about being the new guy.
Mm-hmm.
You said some things that I could connect to. As I go from school to school, I run into people that I've worked with before, and there used to be more of an up and down of good feeling, bad feeling. Now it's just like, hey, if they look at me and they say hi, I'm like, hey, how's it going? Good, good. And someone will say, oh, do you know them? I'm like, yep, I worked with them 8 years ago, 12 years ago. It's interesting because I think that when they look at me, they're doing the same thing. They're like, it's either, hey, it's Roland. I remember we had good times. We worked well together. Or, oh, it's Roland. Like, what's he doing here? Um, and that's just the way it goes, right? It's funny though, because lately I've been spending more time analyzing work relationships. So at one school I worked at, there was a teacher and they were a couple rooms down the hall. So I would see them all the time when we would pick up the students at the door. Like our students left and they came in and they left the school using the same door. So our kids would line up outside that door. So these are the colleagues that you see all the time every day because of circumstance. Room locations, where your kids are, all kinds of stuff like that. And then I see them in another school and I don't work with them anymore and there's no communication. I don't talk to them, they don't talk to me. Um, and then it's like it's a reminder to me context is important
Mm-hmm.
and being kind and civil is important. But
Constant, like that constancy of kindness and
like just in
civility. Yeah, yeah.
so in one environment you're talking to this person all the time asking how are you doing, how's your family, what you do this weekend, and then in this new context I find myself in, I there's no reason for me to talk to them. And one time I actually they just demonstrated to me they're not interested in talking to me either by I guess like universal social cues, if you want to call them that. They're not interested, so I'm not interested. But it's funny because somebody will say, oh, you know that person? I'm like, yeah. uh you know they were two classes down from me for 3 years of my life. I talk to them every day, and now they're just standing over there and they're not interested in talking to me, and I'm not particularly
They're dead
interested in
to
talking to
me.
them. Well, I wouldn't go that far, but I would say send in the drones to take care of
Send
that
it
person.
drones.
Just send in the drones. Okay, so Gary's got a sweet summer school gig, in my opinion. Gary says summer school's mostly online, and he works to
Hmm.
support teachers and students. He also works in person with the principal.
So we have that in our board as well. It's called an ASD, D like Donald. Um, don't even remember what it's called anymore. I had that position for 2 sessions. It was either 2 or 3 sessions. Because summer school principals are individuals that have principal qualifications but don't have a principal designation in the school. They're still teachers. So that's the testing ground, right? And not all principals Not all administrators do summer school. They go right into a school. Like but then there's other ones that like to do it in the summer and they gain experience and they learn. So I managed, I think for 3 summers, 3 different sessions, I did that. ASD, assistant supervisor, assistant something designate. And for us, I was parked in the library. So primary job was running the library at whatever school because I was at 3 different schools when I did it. So I'm a librarian. I'm also local IT. I was also local spec ed. So the like the cert that was there. And then also would, if I was given administrative support designate. Um, and it was a really cool job. I covered classes, like if someone called in sick, so I was like the in-house on-call teacher. It was a really cool dynamic position. And because it was in person, right? It's the dynamicism of it's a little bit different than if you're doing online. Online's cool too, but online didn't exist. I haven't done this. I did this like a decade ago. But I dug it. And then what they did was they no longer allow average schmucks like me just to do it, to apply to it like a summer school position. You have to be someone that declares intention to become an administrator. So they started to only give it to individuals that, you know, either were taking PQP1 or had already completed PQP1 because I guess in their mind, they want to make it more intentional in training up their leadership. So that's it's a good gig. Yeah, the tech support. It's funny too because that doing summer school is like the ultimate new guy position, being the new guy, because you arrive there and summer school is a staff that is from all over the place. Like it's multi-school, right? It's like putting together your national hockey team representing Canada. Like these are all individuals that are coming from different culture backgrounds, different hockey backgrounds, different mindsets, different educational and socioeconomic backgrounds, yet they're all playing towards this common goal. Representing Canada. That's why the summer school could be like that. Summer school is also the place I told the story before about how sometimes problematic it can be when you go into a school that everyone knows is going to be for summer school and like all the LCD projectors have been locked up and those teachers have gone home for the summer and taken the keys with them. So that's another equity conversation altogether. But that was also part of my experience is that ASD position was actually calling teachers on behalf of the principal and saying, hey, where are the keys? We need to get into this cabinet.
That's funny you say that, and I think you've mentioned this before, and it
Yeah,
activates in me a story that I probably told before that I'm gonna tell again.
do it.
When I was at one school and I was doing a ministry 3D project, one of the awesome things I had in my class was a Chromebook cart with like 25 Chromebooks in it.
Mhm.
And the principal of elementary summer school was in the building visiting because that's where one of the summer school locations was going to be.
Mhm.
Because in elementary, I think there at the time there was maybe 4 to 6 locations, and he was responsible for all of them. And he was
Yeah.
already an administrator. He wasn't.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, he was a principal in a school, and I guess he was also the summer school principal, but I don't know why. But I'll never forget, I was in the library. I was kind of running in to grab something, running out. He was visiting, and he looked up at me and he waved and I waved back. He goes, "Don't worry. We're going to take good care of your Chromebooks. Like, we're going to be using the tech in this building for the kids that come to school for summer school in
Yeah.
this building, and your tech is going to be." And I was like, I in my mind I did one of these. I'm like, it's not my tech. Like the ministry bought it for my project, and I'm fully aware that like the principal runs the school, and you know how principals can be. You're
Yep.
we're pulling that out of your room, like whatever, whatever, Mr. Summer School. Okay, have fun. I was like, that's fine. If it makes you feel better to acknowledge that not only are you going to use all this stuff that the school is using all the day, you're also going to use the 25 computers in room, whatever. It was just funny. Um, the way it, hey, don't worry, we're going to, and I had a key because I controlled it within my room, but the key was never mine, and the principal had the other key because there were 2 keys. It's like it makes me laugh because I was not leaving with a key, but there is staff that does leave with the key because they believe it's their stuff. Nobody's gonna touch it unless they've permitted them to touch it. Yeah, I've seen them. I call those the extremists. Like, it's like, "Hey, bro, those don't belong to you. They're in my room. I have the key. I'm taking the key." It's like, no. I remember going to my principal saying, "Here's the key. Now it's on you. If the box explodes, if there's 13 of them are broken in September when we get back, that's all yours." The key was just for me to maintain order in the room. School's over. He clearly is interested in using the whole fleet of Chromebooks in this school, which worries. See, there's it from in my measure, from my perspective, there are concerns because in my district, schools worked hard to try to get funding to purchase the technology to help the students within the building. So when other people come into the building and use it, there is no control. You don't know how they're using it. You don't know if they care. You don't know if they're respecting the things. You don't know anything. You just know that the higher ups, they don't care about possession. They care about we're gonna have 300 kids in that building doing summer school. They need to use the tech. You will let them use the tech. I get that. And then you've got the people in the building who've invested their time and energy saying, is there going to be like who's going to look after this? Is it just going to be willy nilly because that principal doesn't isn't the principal here? They're just going to be walking in and out twice a week to make sure that their teachers are doing their jobs. The teachers don't work here either. They're just here to do summer school. So it's like everybody's visiting. So who is the stalwart? Who's the person who lives here that is going to be managing? And the answer is nobody.
Mhm.
Everybody's walking out of that building at the end of June. Everybody who belongs there in terms of like full-time staff in that building, nobody's sticking around. And who's coming in? Newbies are coming in to teach. A principal who's dealing with 4 to 6 schools is coming in to make sure it's operating properly. The tech's going to live there and everybody's coming back and the tech's going to still be there, but none of the humans are. And I know humans. Sometimes for some humans, being in a space that where they don't live, they don't care what happens there because there's no investment. And then there's other humans that take caution and care no matter where they go or what they do, right? Um, anyway, so I thought that that's what it reminded me of the summer school principal and the keys. The keys are big, man. Some people are crazy. Some people are crazy about keys. I had a principal once that the principal and I didn't get along. And so, I was going to do whatever I could to make their job a little bit more difficult than usual. And I believe that they were going to do whatever they had to do to make my job a little bit more difficult. So we both amped it up a little bit. And it was the last week of school. And I think it was like the third last day. And they were like, "Can you come to my room, my office, and give me back the key for your room for the school?" I'm like, "No." They're like, "Why?" I'm like, "Because I'm expected to maintain security of my room until the last day I'm here. So if I give you my key and, you take possession of my key, then my room's no longer secure, but I'm still here for this week." There was a pause, and, the principal was like, I could see it in their eyes. They're like, "I want to step on you right now, but you make a really good point because if something does happen this week and you couldn't secure your room, I can't blame you because I want your key back now." They were flexing, and I was like flexing back like, "Do you really want it? Because if I give it to you, I don't have access to anything. So I'm going to be bothering everybody in the building to let me into this room, that room, which I'm still allowed to have access to. I'm still an employee in this building." Right? So then principal's like, "Okay, when do you want to give it back?" I'm like, "I will give it back to you on the very last day of school, the minute before I leave my classroom. That's when and I want a receipt of the paper that I signed saying I gave back the key. I want a copy of that." And then this conversation shifts. Well, we don't do that. Well, you're going to do that or I'm not giving you back the key. And then there's the stare down. Anyway, long story short, I go in on the last afternoon. Lunchtime had occurred. I had my planning time. So between planning time and the end of the day, I was going to be in my room and I didn't need to lock it for anything. I went into the office. I said, I'm here to drop off my key. Okay. Put the key down. We both initial this piece of paper. And I'm like, and now I would like a copy of that paper. Okay. And hilarious because nobody in the history has ever asked for a copy of that paper. They just give the key, every initials. I'm like, you're giving me a copy of what I just signed. And I want it that you signed it too, that you received my key. I'm not going to show up somewhere in September and then hear from my buddies, Chidiak, you never gave back your key. You loser, you poor educator, professional. No, give me the friggin' paper. And yeah, it was so now that I look back, I smile because I'm like, I know what you're doing, but I still work here. What if something happens? It's on you, not on me. So think through your anger and your resentment for a minute and land on the professional side of things. I love it.
There was a year one school I was at where at the final staff meeting, so when we arrived at the final staff meeting, um, the admin and the lead administrative assistant were at the doors that everyone were kind of leaving from, and they, as you came through, they had their list of individuals that had handed in their keys, and then they were hitting up the people directly that hadn't handed them in yet, and they said, hand over your keys right now. They basically were like doing a security queue out the door. I remember that. That was new for me. But part of it is like I'm at the other end. I don't give a damn. Like I'll hand in my keys. I'll hand in my keys in early and then I'll just come and ask for keys. Like that's the other thing too. Fine, take them. You want to take them? That's fine. I'm just going to sign out keys each day because I'll need a key to kind of do a thing. Um, and also what's kind of funny where I get a little bit of a smirk off of it is that, and you saying maintaining the security, I get it. I get it. But I also know the story of EDU, and there are so many other things that are insecure and stuff goes missing all the time. And I don't, if my keys go missing, it's not because I didn't hand them in, it's because someone else lost them, right? Like it's kind of one of those funny things, like those things that we sort of, what's the word? Like it's like integrity virtue signaling. That's what it comes to. Like think of all the things that we've sort of created these systems to give the I don't want to say illusion, but there's a slight mirage element to it that because we create the checklist that this is a secure method, that this is a sort of like a foundational method, and we do this a lot. The mindset that we can create the absolute in EDU is a fascinating philosophical kind of like almost, let's say, sometimes tragedy, because often we find out that our methods and the system is that like we're making shit from the beginning, but it made us feel better because we had a checklist. So I just kind of go from this point of view, like, you want my keys? Here's my keys. You want to be the person that's managing the keys? Take the keys. You want to be the person that's doing keys because someone else told you had to take the keys? Take my keys. Because I also will flex on the other side. If I need my keys, I'm going to show up at the office. But I'm also the person that won't come in the school without letting the admin know. Like I will in the summer, I'll send that email and I will ask for permission to come in. I'm not the person that feels like I need to, in the dark of the night, kind of show up and kind of work on my classroom. Like I'm not that person. There are other individuals that, even as the admin is lining us all up in like this cattle call to get our keys back, there's people that are like ducking out the cafeteria door and kind of hustling out the backside because they want to keep their keys. I'm not that guy. I'm not that guy. And I've been the recipient of the problems and headaches that causes in teaching summer school, where, we're making these phone calls to teachers saying, you need to come in and drop off the keys. And they're like, I can't, I'm at my college. Like, you have to, because because this is the school is, they're within their legal right to say, hand in our property, right? Our management can ask us to do that no matter how uncomfortable or inconvenient it seems, or we really like our lanyard and we just can't get it off the lanyard. Like whatever our reason for keeping our keys to the school, I see more tragedy and more weird liability issues by me having a set of keys when I'm not supposed to, than the headache of handing them in and having to do a phone call. I'm coming in today. What's the schedule that I can actually come into the school? Like, I feel like that's an okay way to keep the security. One small way I can operate to keep, the illusion of security more real than not, right? I told you about, like, when I first started at this school, like, so here's the flex on the other side. I think I told the story last week, but it's, from a different perspective. I didn't have any keys for the school that I was in of my own. Like through the first week, I didn't even have my technology, and my site number hadn't even changed over to the new site. So there was a lot of problems. But like 2 weeks before school started, I got in touch with the principal. I'm like, "Hey, can I come by and like check out the school?" Because we were coming out of COVID, like it was when we were kind of starting up, right? So everyone was about to go digital. So there was the risk that I wouldn't even see what the school looked like because this was like 2020. He's like, "Yeah, sure." He was going to be in his office doing work. We're all masked up and keeping distance and all that kind of stuff. And I go walking through the school, and I was actually walking through the school without my mask on. I was the only one there. Like, there was nobody in the halls, right? But I remember on 2 occasions when I was wandering through there, I signed it. I go in the office, I have my mask on, I get the key, I go and I walk around, and I sort of get a peek at what's going to be my classroom. But I'm just walking, opening up doors. I now have a key, like they gave me the master. So I'm opening up doors that the regular set of keys won't do. And I remember on 2 occasions, there were caretakers there that just kind of stopped, and they're looking down the hallway watching me because here's this random, like, I just flexed. I got the key. I asked for the keys. I got the key. I'm walking through the school. Nobody knew me, but it's a perfect example of the mirage of security sometimes that we have, right? I had the permission. I got the permission. The principal knew I was there, but the principal was in their office taking care of paperwork. The principal was also the person that interviewed me. So, I mean, I was known. I just wasn't known to other people. But it just goes to show, like, get your keys back. You can get into your school. You can do it. And I'll go the other side is that if you do go in, and I understand this at a uh, WSIB level, you go into the school without permission, you get injured. Workers' comps can be like, you didn't have permission to be there. We're sorry. And I got too many other things that are important to me. And that could be anything. That could just be falling down the stairs. Like, I'm not talking about like you get poisoned, or there's an actual like random piece of machinery falls on you. It's just you trip and fall. You lose consciousness, right? You're laying there for a couple days because you went in when there was no supervisory staff, and the caretaking shifts just happened to be there was a 12-hour stretch when you weren't known to be there. So I have an appreciation for like the safety element of it. Um, I really like observing those moments though where management will sort of make a statement, and my colleagues are like, "Whoa, whoa, they can't do that." And I'm thinking like, "No, they can. They can. They can totally ask for this." And then just to watch to see how those dual flexes kind of work out. Like, who's going to win this arm wrestle? Who's going to just say, "Okay, okay, I get it." I like those.
And I agree with you that they can ask. And
They can also compel. That's the other part that I will say. They
true,
can they can also
true.
compel. That's the part that sometimes people are like not really those things that, teachers have this kind of weird sensibility that we actually have. I think our right to push back on management sometimes gets confused on our legal obligation to listen to management. And I think it gets kind of gray zone sometimes. I hear some educators say, "Yeah, they asked me to do this. I'm not going to do it." I'm like, you probably should. Like, I mean, I've done my union work. I'm like, you probably should. You actually do need to do that. And key retrieval is one of those things.
But bro, you and I both know that sometimes, yes, there's the letter of the law, and
Mhm.
then there's I dare you to do something about it, and you know that they won't. Right? Like, let's look at the
Yeah.
I agree with you. Like, if that principal ultimately said to me, "You will return your keys today at this time," okay, I would have returned the keys at that time because generally I will follow the rules.
Mhm.
But I've also seen people push back and nothing happens to them. And it's like,
Mhm.
okay, well, I can force your hand. We'll see how far you're going to take this. Now, there is that, right? There's that there is those middle layers that you and I have talked about this, and I won't even talk about this on the podcast because I get myself in a lot of trouble. But you and I have talked many times about the middle layers. You've got management and you've got the worker underneath, and we know how that operates legally,
Mhm.
but you also know that what are you going to do to me? Go ahead. Go ahead. And then you know that there's layers to that too. You can't just step on me instantly. If you want this to stick, you're gonna have to deal with me in following a certain process. Like there's all kinds of BS. At the end of the day, at the end of the day, in my situation, we did not see eye to eye, and we were not interested in giving each other any grace. That was my perception of it. I wasn't going to give them grace. They weren't going to give me grace. So it was just two people who were going like this, button heads the whole time. Um, anyway, there's layers. And that's funny that you can go into a school and sign out keys. We can't do that. It's either you have a key or you don't have a key. Somebody else will let you in. Somebody will say, here's my lanyard. Go open the door
Mhm.
and then bring me back my keys right away. That's elementary school style. Um,
Like, well, that's what my next week is going to have to be.
somebody's going to have to let you in. Like somebody's
I'm
going to
gonna
have
I'm gonna go to the office. I'm like, I need a staff key, and they're gonna look at me. There's gonna be a moment,
right.
and I'm just gonna stand there, and I'm gonna say, I'm on staff. I've just been hired. I'm coming in to set up my classroom, read IEPs. I'm gonna be doing work. And I'm prepared for the I mean, I also know, here's the thing. I also know in advance of that, I'm sending an email to the VP that I've already had conversations with,
Mm.
and I'm going to let them know that I've already used the term with them. Can you grease the wheels so I can get this done? So I'm leaning on management to do things for me that I believe they should as managers, right? They can do permissions. So whoever is the staff in there, I'll say to them, Cracky, can you let them know that I'm coming? And I'll do it in the active form. Please, please let the whoever the administrative assistant is that I'll be coming in this time frame and I'll be asking for a staff key. Direct, do this for me. Because it's not the could you, sort of consider, I wonder if you could, it would be great if you did, it'd be convenient, more convenient than, and I'm just asked directly for what I need. So that also becomes a thing that's kind of useful, being the new guy, the arriving, the leaving, all that kind of stuff, right? Security management. I still sign in. They have like a sign in system. So I'll sign in. So I'll follow those rules and then I'll go and get my shit done. So it's a way to avoid the flex moments, really, right? Because flex moments, sometimes they're really pleasurable and interesting. But in this particular case, the commodity that I need to sort of like be mindful of is time. I don't have the time to spend in those flex moments. I'll flex another time.
I'm with you. Flex for me is only a pig-headed established negative relationship thing. I
Mhm,
I
mhm,
I don't think I walk around the world flexing on people like you go to a restaurant, you order food, and then you flexing on the waitress or the waiter. Like, no.
mhm.
I'm flexing on you're an asshole and you and I have a relationship over years of you being that, and now I'm flexing.
Yep.
For me, it's more of like no, it's not like but there are people who walk around daily flexing all the time. I'm like,
I met I met I met
you
I
met
met
some.
I met some. I met some. And it's kind of like, if you catch my curiosity, I'll spend a little time in the flex. But sometimes what people don't see is like, for me to just take a passive step to observe, I wait for people to show their tells and to give me information and to kind of like I'm receiving. When I say I hear you, I'm getting a lot from that moment, right? And again, I arrive, I know I'm going to be in an anthropological and sociological scientist mode for months to sort of understand the cliques, the perceived pecking orders, who does things, who will be my go-to people, who are the people that are suggesting they're my go-to people, but they're really just the call me if you need me people, which are not useful to me. I want the people that'll show up. I will absolutely make sure my call list are the people that show up. So
I want to talk about keys for another minute
yeah, yeah, do it.
because I had an interesting key moment. So,
Hmm.
okay, so I no longer work in the CEC, the Catholic Education Center, because they've turned off my fob to get into the building.
Okay.
So I don't have any access to that building. They've turned it off.
Okay.
But what I do have access to, so the school board said you no longer have access to the school board main office, but we've designated you to operate out of the adult high school, one of their buildings. So now that's your designation is there. You
Hmm.
have permission to get a key there. I
Okay.
said, okay. So Bosco is in one of the adult education buildings. Because Bosco doesn't really exist. Bosco SEAL Team 6. It's like everybody knows we're there, but we don't exist. But anyway, I went to the adult high school head secretary, admin assistant, said, I'm Roland Chidiak. I I'm designated to the building right there and the Bosco space. Can I please have a key? Yes, you can. They give me the key, sign for it here. I sign. They give me a copy of the signature that I've taken key E6 or whatever, and I go. And then that's Kitchener Bosco. And then I talked to my boss and I said, can I also get a key for Cambridge Bosco? Because when I'm in Cambridge and I've got time, I'd like to stop into there and work out of there. No
Hmm.
problem. So I go to Cambridge Bosco and Bomber gives me the Cambridge Bosco key. And I don't sign for anything. He makes a note of it or whatever, and I put it on my keychain. So maybe 2 months ago, Bomber, who's the program head, I'm not going to tell you his real name. Bomber is a teacher at Bosco. He's the program head. And he sent out an email to all staff saying, I created a form. Please list what key you have. What's the number on the key? So I decide to flex and be like, Bomber, I have C3 for Cambridge, but my Kitchener key is not a Bosco key. He's like, what do you mean? I said, you didn't give it to me. St. Louis Adult High School gave it to me. So if I'm telling you right now that when if some one of you asks for the key back, I'm not giving it to any of you. I'm going to St. Louis Adult High School. I'm going to go to the head admin assistant. I'm going to say, I'm Roland Chidiak. I'm here to return my key because you gave me the key. So it was just funny because I guess maybe I don't know what was going on. There was miscommunication, but so I ended up writing in the form, I have key E6, but it was not given to me by anybody at Bosco. It was given to me by the adult high school. And I was having fun because I was like, there are lots of players in this game. I know where I signed for this key. I know who gave it to me, and that's who's getting it back. I'm not giving it to Bosco. You guys didn't give it to me. If I give it to you, at the end of the day, I'm screwing myself because you guys can do whatever you want with the key. You didn't sign for it. I did. But it's just layer upon layer upon layer. When I was in the board office, I had a meeting at the board office the other day, and I buzz in, and the admin assistant at the front knows me, so she lets me in. And then she was on the phone, and there's glass in front of her, so you can't just talk like she won't hear me. So I point at the elevator because to get on the elevator, there's another door that they have to buzz you into. I'm like
Hmm.
a police station. So I buzz into the front foyer. Then I'm like, I got to get upstairs. I can't get upstairs without a fob unless you let me in this door. So she lets me in. I go upstairs and everybody's like, hey, Roland, like the consultants, we haven't seen you in a long time. Hey, it's nice to see you. I'm on the road. How come you never here? I don't work here. And then there's the pause. Everybody's just kind of like, what do you mean you don't work here? I'm like, I don't have time. I have a meeting. I don't work here. You haven't noticed that they took away the desk that they let me use and they put somebody else there. Like you didn't notice, but anyway, so I was having some fun with that. And then the other, I go, so last year, one particular school I would go to. I was there like 2 or 3 times a week for like the whole year, and I'm buzzing in, and after the 10th time, the admin assistant says like, "Who are you? You're here all the time." And I sign in, like I come into the office, I say good morning. I've got my badge. I sign in. When I leave, I sign out. So it's like I'm in the building. I'm telling you I'm in the building. Your principal knows I'm in the building, but he didn't tell you. Okay. Who are you and what are you doing here? I'm like, oh, I'm a re-engagement teacher. I'm working with one of the students. So then the next time I came, she goes, "Doesn't your fob open our door?" I'm like, no. Why? She's like, "This I can't be buzzing you in every time you come." Like she was an ornery type individual. "I'm not
Mhm,
gonna buzz you in every time." Well, then how do I get in if you're not gonna buzz me in? Like that's why there's a buzzer at the door. She's like, "I don't want to do my job in that respect when it comes to you." I'm like, well, who's gonna let me in? She goes, "You got to get your fob activated for this building." I said, "Oh, okay." So I go into the principal's office. I'm like, "Do you have a minute?" "Yeah." "Okay. Your admin assistant doesn't want to buzz me in anymore. Can you please email somebody and ask that they activate my fob for your building?" "Well, who do I ask?" I'm like, "I don't know. You tell me. You're the principal.
mhm.
Who do you talk to when you get a new person? They need it." Anyway, we go through this thing and it was very polite, but at the end of it, the principal's like, "If I have time, I'll do it." I'm like, "Okay." That means no, I'm not doing it. Which okay. So then I remember the next time I came back, the admin assistant is like, "You again?" I'm like, "Yeah, it's me again." And she goes, "Did you talk to anybody?" I said, "Yeah, I talked to the principal." "Well, what did the principal do?" "I don't know. Like I'm not the principal." I went a whole year that nobody ever asked anybody to activate my fob for this school. I know my lane. I could ask. Uh, you just email facilities and tell them, "Oh, that's gonna go over well. Hey, I'm Roland Chidiac. Can you let me into this, and this building?" No. Um, so the lady was every time she'd see me, she was angry. And I would just wave and smile and I would do my best. I learned how to fill out that sign-in procedure at that school so fast so I wouldn't have to be in the office for extended periods of time because she was just shooting daggers at me with her eyes. And the funny part is, as I'm signing in, she's buzzing in whoever else is at the door. They walk in, she's sweet as pie to them. I'm like, how come they don't get in shit for not having a fob? But anyway, I love the layers. I love the relationships because you just never know who you're going to run into and how they're going to treat you and why they're going to treat you that way.
Mhm.
And politics are just hilarious. Just hilarious. Who's in charge of what? Who's going to get permission to do what? Don't give me any keys. Don't activate my fob. I'll find a way in. I want no responsibility for anything anymore because you guys make it sound like you're handing over the friggin' the, uh, the nuclear
Keys to the
launch
kingdom,
codes.
as they say, the keys to the kingdom.
I've got Barack Obama's, briefcase that's got all the nuclear codes in it now.
Yeah,
Really?
it's true. Well, this is what I was talking about, that these virtual systems of security, right? And I'm not saying education is not secure, but the actual number of things that are on paper to make things secure that have been well thought out, tried and tested. There's a whole bunch of other things that we just do as the humans to make ourselves feel secure. That's it, right? We secure, our ego, our position, our emotions, all these other kind of things. It's just, and again, I'll just take it back to this is why, probably the first school year, I'll be observing the relationships. I'll be reserving the relationships and building and observing, building and observing, building and observing. Like that's the flow in any other work to try and strong arm my understanding or my position at the school is wasted. It's wasted, and it won't invest long term. Any of the work is. I'll go back to even the 3 years at this previous school. the fact that people were coming up and saying, "I will miss you," and we are having some amazing heartfelt kind of moments was the fact that, I had invested in those people and they had invested in me. So there was a genuineness to it, right? So those type of moves, that's I'll be watching. I crave to do that and I will do that. I just know that in order to know with whom I can be that person and be something more than just a colleague, that'll take some time. So I'm down for that. Whatever complications come out of that.
Gary said at 9:04 a.m., which was a long time ago.
Hmm.
It is interesting how individuals try to size up others and with different intent.
Hmm.
And Gary also talks about the perception of security.
Yeah. I like that intent thing. I don't spend a lot of time. It's one of the things that in the beginning, I don't spend a lot of time on why. I only go by what. I go by what's right in front of me. Because for me to get to the why is just that's a longer story. But flat out, if I know, if I know that you can do a thing and you refuse to do a thing, I don't actually care why. I'm just going to find another person to do that thing. And that's my sort of that's a way to save my time on the front end. I eventually will come back to that story and I have people, you sort of get to know somebody and your relationship changes slightly and I'll come back. I'm like, remember when we first met? I asked you to do that thing or if I could borrow that thing and your body language or your words clearly indicated you weren't down with doing that. What was going on there? And I've returned to many of those. I actually enjoy coming back to those. I need a little bit of that now and then. Look how different we are now, kind of like a moment. Um, but yeah, I won't put a lot of investment in the why. I treat initial relationships in new spaces like everyone's a 3-year old. And I only go by the what. What is being presented to me? That's it. What is being presented to me to sort of think about that was a good lesson for me to understand as a parent too. You got to deal with the what. Deal with what is right in front of you. At some point, you can dig into the why and the how, but the what, fix the what, speak to the what, see the what. Just be very concrete about it. And eventually, you'll get the nuanced version. But nuances aren't important when what is the critical thing in front of you. And getting a key to a room is a what. I actually don't care if you're having a bad day. I actually don't care if in the past no one's ever asked you this question before. I don't care that you don't know me. If I have the password and I have the email and the permission and I ask for this what transaction, give me the key. Or I'll find somebody else to satisfy my what. Save my time.
Awesome.
Awesome.
I think the time has come.
How's it?
I believe so. Hey, it's a strong brain. Is that what that is? That's what I
Yeah.
perceive it to be. A brain with big
Dude needs
muscles.
to do like
Oh, flexing.
a leg day and maybe
Flex.
work a little bit on the left arm.
I love it.
One strong arm. Strong armed. There we are. That's where we're going. Strong armed.
Oh, and Gary, I gotta say, Gary says he always assumes genuineness until interaction suggests differently.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. We're saying different. And I go genuineness by what? Right? That's the equal sign. Actually, that's the relation. Genuineness, you satisfy my what? Or don't. That's the other part too. That can be genuine as well. Right? People can be genuine and not do a damn thing for you. They are being genuine.
same to you, Gary. Thank you for sharing
Gary,
your time.
Gary, go be awesome in your summer school. I
Be
guess we should
awesome.
let Gary know that. So when we're on summer school schedule, I think last year we actually did drop into quite a few Saturdays. I will say right now, or whatever day we manage to get another episode, I will say right now, this time next week, I think I will probably be saying something like, all right, everybody get their stuff in the car. We got to hit the road. Because I think it's next Saturday. I think
Next
next
Saturday, you
Saturday.
hit the road.
Yeah, we leave. We leave on our road trip, our summer road trip. So um, we can haggle on what the next drop in into Dakota will be.
That's interesting because I might be in a hotel room next Saturday morning.
Nice.
So, yeah, we'll
So
have to
there we
see
go.
what Decoded looks like moving forward during summer school.
Yep, you can always find us on YouTube. You can always find us
Oh,
on
look at
YouTube,
this.
so
Gary made a big mistake here,
oh,
saying that it'd be nice to
ooh.
meet you. Maybe I need to hit Gary up about what's happening closer to the end of July.
Yeah. Yep, for sure. And the reciprocity of being in the neighborhood, right? So he can get on the mailing list,
Mm,
the text list for whenever we flip back to the Lou, whenever we skip back to the Kitch Lou region, right?
Kitch Lou. That's a good one. Okay.
Kitch Lou. Gary, samesies, dude. Samesies. I would dig having face to face.
I know you don't want to see me, Gary. It's all about the cluff. I know. You don't need to flex on me. I love it.
I'll assume genuineness until I know otherwise.
I love it. Okay. Good stuff.
Peace, Gary. Have a fantastic whatever comes your way for Canada Day. And thanks, Chids. Another good combo.
You're welcome. This was season 6, episode 40, number 258.
Mhm.
We'll catch you all later. Happy Canada Day, whatever that looks like for people. And if Canada Day is not your thing, have an awesome Saturday. Peace.